Welcome back to the Gold IRA Blueprint podcast. Today we're going dap on something that's particularly relevant for you guys, our listeners. Wealthy American retirees looking for ways to not just protect, but really grow that nest egg you've worked so hard for. We're talking about gold IRAs. And to give you a head start, we've got a free gold IRA checklist. It's designed specifically for wealthy American retirees with more than 100,000 or $5 million in retirement savings. You can grab that in the description below. It walks you through everything we talk about today.
Yeah, it's always smart to explore all your options when it comes to retirement planning, especially, in today's economic climate.
Absolutely, especially these days, right? We've seen how inflation can just eat away at your purchasing power. And the stock market, well, let's just say it's not always the smoothest ride, especially when you're relying on your portfolio for income, right? So, so let's talk about how gold might fit into the picture. We always hear gold touted as this safe haven asset, but what's the reality there?
Well, the fascinating thing about gold is that it has this long history of holding its value, even increasing in value, when things get a little shaky economically speaking. It's like a financial ballast. Think back to the 1970s, for example. Inflation soared over 10%, but gold's value increased by something like 2,000% in that same period.
Wow, 2,000%. That's an incredible return. I mean, it really shows you how gold can be that buffer against inflation.
Exactly. And for retirees living on a fixed income, that protection against losing purchasing power, that can be absolutely critical.
Okay, so let's connect this to gold IRAs, right? We know they hold physical gold, not just stocks of gold companies or something. But for those who may be new to this, can you just break down exactly how a gold IRA works?
Sure. A gold IRA is what's called a self-directed IRA, meaning you have, more control over the assets held within it. Instead of traditional stocks or bonds, you hold physical gold, which can be bullion or coins. Basically, you open an account with a specialized custodian, you fund it through a transfer or rollover from an existing account, then you choose your gold, and you just make sure it's stored in an IRS-approved depository.
It sounds pretty straightforward. But are there any specific nuances that wealthy retirees, people with significant assets, should be particularly attuned to?
Yeah, there are definitely a few things to consider. For example, when you're choosing between, say, gold bullion and coins, you'll want to think about the premiums and how easy it is to sell them if you need to, liquidity. Coins often have a higher premium because people collect them, but they're usually easier to sell if you need to access your funds quickly. Bullion, on the other hand, has lower premiums but might be a little bit harder to sell quickly.
So choosing between bullion and coin, it's kind of like choosing between a blue chip stock and a growth stock, right?
Yeah.
You got different risk reward profiles to think about.
That's a great analogy. And of course with substantial assets, tax optimization becomes even more, more crucial. We'll dive into how gold IRAs can be used to potentially minimize those tax burdens later.
That was good. And speaking of tax optimization, before we move on, I just want to remind everyone about that free Gold IRA checklist we put together, especially for you, our wealthy American retirees. It really helps you compare costs, understand fee structures, and just get a clear picture of the tax implications. That's in the first link in the description. So check it out. It's packed with info to help you make those informed decisions about your retirement savings.
Definitely a valuable resource. Knowledge is power, right? Especially when we're talking about your financial future.
I couldn't agree more. So let's circle back to this idea of gold as a safe haven. I think we all kind of instinctively understand, gold's historical significance as a store of value. But what makes it particularly relevant today, in this crazy world with all the complexities of a globalized digital economy?
Well, that's a great question. And gold is kind of unique in that it's a tangible asset. It has this intrinsic value. It's not tied to any specific government or currency. And there's always demand for it globally. It's a real physical asset that you own. And that offers a sense of security that paper assets, which can be incredibly volatile, just can't match.
Yeah, it's that feeling of holding something concrete in your hands,
Yeah.
right? Not just numbers on a screen that could, vanish overnight.
Exactly. There's a real psychological comfort to that. And even in this digital world, this primal desire for tangible security, it hasn't gone away. If anything, all the uncertainty we've seen in recent years from geopolitical instability to inflation, it's reinforced gold's appeal.
I can definitely see that. But wouldn't you say that gold is, well, a bit old-fashioned? I mean, some people might argue it's a relic of the past, not really relevant in today's high-tech, fast-paced financial world.
Yeah, I understand that perspective, but remember, gold isn't about chasing the latest trends or trying to get rich quick. It's about that long-term strategy for wealth preservation. And historically, that's exactly what gold has done. It's weathered every storm imaginable. Wars, depressions, political upheaval, currency collapses, you name it.
So in a way, gold's kind of like that vintage watch your grandfather passed down. It might not have all the bells and whistles of a smartwatch, but it's timeless, it's reliable, and it holds its value over generations.
I like that analogy. And just like that vintage watch, gold can provide that sense of continuity, of stability in a world that often feels anything but stable.
Okay, I'm starting to see how gold can play this unique role in a well-diversified portfolio.
Yeah.
But let's address a common concern.
Hmm.
Costs. I mean, gold IRAs, they seem like they'd be expensive to set up and manage, especially compared to a traditional IRA. Is that true?
Well, there are costs involved, yes, like storage fees and account maintenance, but they're often comparable to those of traditional IRAs, especially when you factor in, the peace of mind and the potential protection gold can provide.
Yeah, it's not just about the upfront cost, but the value you get in return.
Yep.
And that value can be hard to quantify, right?
Mm.
Peace of mind isn't something you see on a balance sheet.
You're absolutely right. And this is where a trusted financial advisor can be so invaluable. They can really help you assess your risk tolerance, your long-term goals, and figure out if a gold IRA aligns with your overall retirement strategy.
And speaking of finding the right resources, let's let's mention that free Gold IRA checklist one more time. It includes a really helpful comparison tool for different Gold IRA providers, so you can weigh those fees, the services they offer, and their reputation before you make a decision. Again, you can find that link in the description below.
It's a fantastic tool to help you navigate this whole process and avoid any potential pitfalls.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the historical appeal of gold, its potential role in today's economy, and the nuts and bolts of a gold IRA. Now let's dive deeper into the specific benefits that really resonate with wealthy retirees. And the first one that jumps out, especially in today's environment, is protection against inflation.
Right. And this is where we go beyond those historical anecdotes. Let's look at what's happening right now. Inflation is a real concern, and gold has traditionally performed well during inflationary periods. It's considered a store of value precisely because it doesn't lose purchasing power as quickly as paper currencies can.
So for someone who's worked their whole life to build a nest egg, seeing that value eroded by inflation, that's going to be incredibly frustrating, right? It's like watching your hard-earned savings just slowly slip away.
Exactly. And that's where gold can come in. While past performance isn't a guarantee of future results, it does give you some indication of how gold might behave in a similar economic environment.
Okay, so let's say I'm a wealthy retiree with a substantial portfolio.
Yeah.
How exactly does a gold IRA fit into my overall retirement strategy? What percentage should I think about allocating to gold?
Well, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Every individual's financial situation is unique, but as a general guideline, a lot of financial advisors recommend allocating something like 5% to 15% of a retirement portfolio to gold as a hedge against inflation and market volatility.
And for someone with a larger portfolio, say $5 million or more, might that percentage be even higher?
Potentially, yes. Especially if they're particularly concerned about preserving their wealth and purchasing power over the long term.
So it's not just about chasing those high returns, but about creating a portfolio that can weather any storm.
Exactly. And gold, with its long track record of resilience, can play a really key role in that strategy.
This is great information, but I have to admit, holding physical gold seems, I don't know, a little old-fashioned, like something my grandparents would do.
I understand where you're coming from, but remember, there's a reason why gold has been considered a store of value for centuries.
Yeah.
It's a tangible asset, something you can hold in your hand.
It's not just numbers on a screen.
Exactly. It has intrinsic value, meaning it's always in demand globally, regardless of economic conditions. It's a real physical asset that you own, which can provide a sense of security that paper assets just can't match.
I see your point. There's something reassuring about knowing you have something tangible to fall back on.
It's a psychological factor, but it's important. Gold, it offers that sense of stability and permanence that can be can be very comforting during uncertain times.
It's interesting how we've come full circle in our conversation back to this idea of gold's enduring appeal. It's fascinating how something so ancient can still hold so much relevance in today's world.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so crucial to understand not just the mechanics of a gold IRA, but also the underlying principles that make gold such a unique asset class.
Well said. And speaking of understanding those principles, let's move on to another key benefit of gold IRAs, especially for wealthy retirees.
Yeah.
Protection from market volatility. We all know the stock market can be a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
And during retirement, you don't want to be on that wild ride, my
No, you really don't.
Exactly. So let's talk about how gold can help, smooth out that ride. We mentioned that gold often has this low correlation with the stock market. What exactly does that mean, and why is it important for retirees?
Well, it means that gold doesn't always move in the same direction as stocks. In fact, when the stock market takes a dive, gold often actually goes up. It acts as a counterbalance in your portfolio. That's because investors, they tend to flock to gold as a safe haven when things are looking a little uncertain economically.
It's almost like having an insurance policy for your portfolio.
Hmm.
When one asset class is struggling, the other can kind of step in and help mitigate the losses.
That's a really good way to think about it. For example, think back to the 2008 financial crisis. When the stock market crashed, gold actually increased in value. It provided a cushion for a lot of investors who had allocated a portion of their portfolio to gold.
Yeah, and the source material even mentions a retiree named John who saw like significant appreciation in his portfolio during that downturn because he had 30% allocated to gold.
Right. That's a perfect example of how diversification, particularly with gold, can really help protect your wealth during those turbulent times. And that peace of mind, knowing that you have a safety net, can be incredibly valuable during retirement.
I can imagine no one wants to see their retirement savings just wiped out by a sudden market crash. So gold can provide that sense of stability, that protection. But what about the other side of the coin? Are there any downsides or risks associated with gold IRAs that we need to be aware of?
Yeah, that's an important question. While gold has, many benefits, it's crucial to have a balanced perspective. One thing to consider is that gold doesn't generate income like dividends from stocks or interest from bonds.
So its value lies primarily in its potential for capital appreciation.
Right.
The price of gold increasing over time.
Exactly. And while gold has historically held its value well and even appreciated significantly during certain periods, there's no guarantee that it will always outperform other assets.
So it's not a get-rich-quick scheme, right? It's a long-term strategy for wealth preservation.
Precisely. And like any investment, gold prices can fluctuate in the short term. It's important to have a long-term investment horizon and not panic if you see, short-term dips in the price of gold.
Right, it makes sense. It's not about timing the market, but about having a solid strategy and sticking to it. Are there any other potential downsides to consider?
Well, one thing we haven't really talked about yet is liquidity. While gold is generally considered a liquid asset, it can sometimes be a little trickier to sell quickly compared to stocks or bonds, particularly if you're dealing with large quantities.
So if I need to access a large sum of money from my gold IRA, quickly, it might take a bit longer to liquidate those assets.
That's a possibility to keep in mind. It's important to have a plan in place for any potential liquidity needs and discuss this with your financial advisor.
That's good advice. It's all about planning and having a well thought out strategy. And speaking of planning, this might be a good time to remind everyone about that free Gold IRA checklist we've created. It includes some valuable information about choosing the right custodian and storage facility, which can impact both the security and the liquidity of your gold holdings. You can find that link in the description below.
It's an excellent resource for anyone considering a gold IRA.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, there's one more topic I want to touch on. A concern that we hear a lot, and it's understandable, especially when you're dealing with something as valuable as gold scams. How can our listeners protect themselves and make sure they're working with a legitimate gold IRA provider?
That's a crucial question. Unfortunately, as with any any industry that involves significant sums of money, there are unscrupulous individuals and companies out there looking to take advantage of unsuspecting investors. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself.
So what are some red flags to watch out for? What should send those alarm bells ringing?
Well, one major red flag is high pressure sales tactics. A reputable provider is going to, educate you about gold IRAs, answer your questions thoroughly, and give you time to make an informed decision without pressuring you to invest right away.
So if someone is pushing me to invest immediately, that's a bad sign.
Absolutely. Take your time, do your research, and make sure you're comfortable with the provider and the terms before you commit any funds.
Okay, what are some other warning signs?
Another red flag is a lack of transparency about fees.
Yeah.
A reputable provider will be, upfront about all costs associated with setting up and maintaining a gold IRA, including, storage fees, administrative costs, and any other applicable charges.
So no hidden fees, no surprises.
Exactly. And be wary of providers who promise guaranteed returns. No investment can guarantee returns, and gold is no exception.
So if someone is promising me the moon, I should be skeptical.
Definitely. Realistic expectations are key when it comes to investing. A reputable provider is going to, focus on helping you achieve your long-term financial goals, not making those unrealistic promises.
And this is where due diligence comes in, right? It's about taking the time to research different providers, compare their fees and services, and check their reputation.
Exactly. And there are resources available to help you with that. For instance, our free Gold IRA checklist includes a list of questions to ask potential providers, which can help you, weed out the bad apples and find a company you can trust. And again, you can find that link in the description.
That's a fantastic resource. It's all about empowering yourself with knowledge so you can make those informed decisions. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive into gold IRAs, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture. It's not just about, numbers on a spreadsheet, right? It's about what those numbers represent. Your financial security, your freedom, your ability to enjoy the retirement you've worked so hard for.
That's precisely it. Retirement planning should be about, creating a future where you can live life on your own terms, pursue your passions, and spend time with loved ones without the burden of financial worries.
Yeah, it's about that peace of mind, knowing that you've taken steps to protect your wealth and secure your financial future.
Exactly. And a gold IRA as part of a well-diversified portfolio can contribute to that peace of mind. It's not a magic bullet, but it's a valuable tool that can help you, navigate the uncertainties of the financial world and enjoy those golden years you deserve.
And that brings us to our final thoughts as you continue your research and consider whether a gold IRA is right for you. I want to leave you with this question. How can a gold IRA help you achieve your specific retirement goals and create the retirement of your dreams? It's a question worth pondering.
It is indeed, because ultimately retirement planning is about more than just money. It's about creating a life filled with purpose, with joy, and the freedom to live each day to the fullest.
It really is. It's about so much more. It's easy to get caught up in the weeds of it all, the IRAs and asset allocation and all that stuff. But we got to remember what it's really all about.
Exactly. Yeah. Retirement planning. It should be about, designing that next chapter, a chapter filled with possibilities, with, fulfillment.
Well said. And I think for a lot of our listeners, part of that fulfillment comes from knowing they've secured their financial future, not just for themselves, but for their families too.
Absolutely. A legacy of financial stability that can provide such a sense of peace, and it allows future generations to, pursue their own dreams without that financial burden holding them back.
Yeah, it's about creating a lasting impact, not just, hoarding wealth for wealth's sake.
Precisely. And that's where a gold IRA, as part of a well-structured retirement plan, can really, really play a significant role. It's not just about protecting your assets. It's about safeguarding your legacy.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into gold IRAs, let's bring it all together for our listeners who are intrigued by this idea of adding gold to their retirement portfolio. What are the key takeaways they should keep in mind?
Well, first and foremost, remember that knowledge is power, right? Do your research, understand, how gold IRAs work, and don't be afraid to ask questions. A reputable gold IRA provider, they'll be a valuable resource and guide you through the process.
And speaking of resources, don't forget to download our free Gold IRA checklist. It's designed specifically for wealthy American retirees, those with more than $100,000 or even $5 million in savings.
Yeah.
You can find the link in the description below, as always.
Yeah, it's packed with information. You'll find a comparison tool for different providers, tips on choosing a custodian and storage facility, and key questions to ask potential providers, all in
It's
there.
like having a roadmap for your Gold IRA journey.
Exactly. Second thing to remember, diversification is key. Gold, it should be part of a well-balanced portfolio, not your only investment.
Right. It's about spreading the risk and creating a portfolio that can handle anything, whether any economic storm.
Right. And finally, don't underestimate the value of peace of mind, knowing that you've taken steps to protect your wealth and secure your financial future. That allows you to truly enjoy your retirement.
So it's not just about the numbers, but about the freedom and the security those numbers represent.
Absolutely. It's about living your retirement dreams, knowing that you've built a solid foundation for yourself and for your loved ones.
That's a fantastic note to end on. We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights, given you a solid understanding of how gold IRAs can play a role in achieving your retirement goals.
Remember, retirement planning, it's an ongoing journey. It's not a destination. Stay informed, stay engaged, and take control of your financial future.
Thanks for joining us on the Gold IRA Blueprint podcast. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of retirement planning.